So did this franchise, one of the greatest espionage slash action slash adventure franchises of all time, go out with a bang? Sure, you could say that. From a certain point of view. Gotta work on my Alec Guinness. I'll talk about my view of the movie from a lot of different perspectives, the good and the bad. So, let's discuss. First off, things that were done well. You got action. Obviously, it's like the heart of the Mission series. I don't think that there is another series, maybe besides John Wick, but John Wick is a different kind of action, in my opinion, that does action as well as the Mission Impossible series. And if you watch the press junkets that Tom Cruise has been participating in, you have mad respect for this man and the work that he puts into his craft. I don't think that there are many like Tom Cruise. In fact, there's probably none like Tom Cruise out there doing it the way that he's doing it. I mean, watch any of the interviews he gives, but he's been studying this stuff for decades, and this latest Mission Impossible entry is a culmination of his work in analyzing the industry and stunts and acting, and he put it all into this movie. And all of that preparation and knowledge and skill you will see on screen, I promise you. The cinematography of this movie, very well done, specifically the submarine sequence. There are absolutely beautiful shots of that sequence, especially if you see it in IMAX, which I highly recommend seeing it in the IMAX format. But like, for example, as Tom Cruise is descending into the depths of the ocean and he's firing off these sort of yellow burning flares to light his path down to the submarine, the Sevastopol, those shots are just beautiful. And as always with any Mission movie, the way the camera moves with the action, it's a very much a dance, and you notice that. You notice how skilled Tom Cruise and McQuarrie are performing this back and forth dance in order to make it just look like a beautiful action sequence. Thirdly, you have the score. It's an amazing score. The theme song is incredible. It gets you pumped right in the beginning when you start to hear that brrrr. I don't think I particularly nailed that, but we're going to go with it. But anyway, the score. The score is amazing. It gets you into the movie. Enough said. The fourth thing that was sometimes well done was the pacing, right? In certain areas, I think it was really, really tightly edited and really well done, especially when paired with the score. There was a good tension buildup when the pacing was done well. And I think it was done well more toward the beginning, where you had the war room sequences that were tying into kind of the preparation of Tom Cruise figuring out his plan to acquire the original source code of the entity. And number 5, the performances in this movie, they're rock solid, I think. You can tell that this particular cast has a lot of chemistry on screen, and we've heard Simon Pegg talk about their chemistry off screen, and I think it shows. And in regard to acting, I've heard a lot of people make the comment that Tom Cruise is like the last movie star, and honestly, I'm not sure what they mean by that exactly. Let me know in the comments what you think. I have a feeling that there's going to be many different definitions in the comments of what that actually means. For me, when I hear that, it's someone saying, Tom Cruise just really gives a shit about what he does and is involved in many facets of cinema and just produces really good movies. That's at least what I think they're saying. But let me know what you think. Okay, so those are the things I thought the movie did well. Now for the things I think done not so well. Some of the sequences were just too long for me. In fact, one of the best sequences, I think, the submarine sequence, while it was solid, I think that could have been cut by like 5 minutes probably, because while it was a cool sequence, it felt at times like it was, here's Tom Cruise opening a door underwater. Now Tom Cruise will flip the lights on in the room underwater. Now Tom Cruise will look around the room and assess. And it's like, okay, there's probably a version of this where we can tighten that up a little bit. The treadmill fight scene. Remember when Tom Cruise is just taking a leisurely jog and all of a sudden he's getting knifed out of the curtains? That scene, I think it was just action for the sake of action. I'm pretty sure you can remove that scene and the movie does not suffer. There are no plot holes. We can just move on. The third part I think you could cut is the beginning exposition. For successful franchises, take the first 20 Marvel movies, the Infinity Saga. We get to Endgame. Endgame was a 3-hour movie. pretty close in runtime to the final reckoning. Yet Endgame did not have any exposition up front. And Endgame was a culmination of 20 movies, or 19 movies, since Endgame was the 20th. This movie was a culmination of 7 movies. My point is, when you have a successful franchise, one that makes money and that the fans follow, I'm not sure that exposition is needed. But they put it in there, and I know that Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie want each mission movie to be its own thing, that you don't have to see the other mission movies that come before, but still, I don't think they needed the exposition. Now let's talk about the dialogue. Overall, it was just okay, but there was a really meh kind of cringe moment for me, and that's when they're all coming up with the final plan to trap the entity in their glowing yellow, hard drive or thumb drive, whatever that thing is. And Tom Cruise calls the entity the Lord of Lies. And when he said that, I was just like, oh man, the Lord of Lies. It just sounds like a throwback, corny, cheesy title, like Ethan Hunt and the Lord of Lies. The last little bone to pick I have about the final reckoning, supposedly. And this is a spoiler alert, by the way, so if you haven't seen it, get out of here. They built up the drama and suspense so much for Ilsa Faust and her death. By the way, Ilsa Faust, one of my favorite supporting characters of all time in this series. I think that they did her death right. They did her the service of building up the drama and the tension, and there was a legit mourning scene with Tom Cruise holding her in his arms on the bridge, and I felt like they did her that service. And Ilsa Faust was only a character in the Mission series for 3 movies. Now, for Luther's death, who's been on the set since day 1 of the Mission series, it was just like a fleeting moment to me, and it wasn't handled with any of the weight and the attention that Ilsa Faust received, and I thought that they could have made that more of a dramatic moment, but that's not what this movie was, I think. This movie was more about the action and doubling down on that. And I think the previous entries, like Fallout and Rogue Nation and even Dead Reckoning Part 1, sort of had that more serious tone, cared more about story, and this particular entry kind of emphasized action. Later on in the movie, Ron Swanson died, aka the 5-star general who saves the president's life. I think, he had 5 minutes of screen time, but it seemed to me like the way they filmed his death, they wanted you to care. That quite didn't add up to me. But, like I said, to me, this movie emphasized action and not the more weighty elements of the story. So, I give this movie a 7 out of 10, because the things that it did well enough. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of the movie. If you like this movie, please hit the like button. What am I talking about? The like button. And as always, hit that subscribe button if you'd like to hang out in the future. It'll probably be painless. But until then, I'll see you next time.